right, we're live and rolling. Uh, a very warm welcome to all of you who are joining in on the Vitrina podcast today. We have Chuck Parker, the CEO of Sohonet, joining us today for a chat relating to both the business, the industry, as well as the outlook for the 2024 calendar year. Welcome, Chuck. Thanks so much for joining us on the Vitrina podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. And Chuck, one of the aspects that we would try and cover is both an outlook for 2023, an overview of Sohonet, and your business, as well as what are we sort of seeing and anticipating, especially given the strikes are over, where is the industry headed? So that's kind of the format that we'll actually sort of follow. And then one of the things that I want to absolutely double click on is Sohonet's actually been in the news a lot last year. There have been acquisitions, you've had a host of very exciting projects, and we hope to cover that as well in our chat today.
Okay.
Perfect.
Great.
So, awesome. So, just to sort of get us started, Chuck, would be great if you could give us an overview of the Sohonet business, the specific aspects that are part of the solutioning, and then also a little bit of your background, and your journey with Sohonet.
So, Sohonet, at Sohonet, we connect storytellers. And what does that mean? Our trick starts typically on set, like the value proposition that we give to our customers, where we're doing communications, but essentially phones, internet, Wi-Fi on set. That happens at about 300 premium sound stages around the world, where we have boots on the ground doing that work. That typically feeds that data has to egress from set, of course, in a number of workflows. That integrates into the second leg of the Sohonet stool, the networking business, which most of our customers know us for. We've been around since 1995 in that capacity. We touch every distribution studio, the vast majority of production studios, and pretty much every post and VFX company in the industry.
Wow.
From there, we then try to enhance that collaboration experience with some bespoke services, specifically around things like file transfer. We have a great product called File Runner. Around real-time remote collaboration, we have two products, Clearview Flex and Clearview Pivot, both Emmy-winning tool suites that help our customers make their content at scale. And then we acquired a company called Fifth Kind in March of last year. And that is really around production asset management. The base product is called Core. We announced two derivative products from that, one called Clearview Rush, which is about the review of dailies, and one around libraries and library management for integrative marketing at the studio level, which is called StoryLink. And so those three business lines come together. And again, if you think about our mission statement and our vision statement is all around the way we help our customers with collaboration so they can do what they do, which is put amazing content on the screen, right? And our kind of how we'd love to see things happen is that collaboration kind of fades into the background, meaning the ability for two different creatives on the same episodic or feature that they're working 5,000 miles apart and don't notice it because the tech is so easy, seamless, fades into the background.
Fascinating. Fascinating. I was actually wanting to understand also, Chuck, that, especially with remote collaboration, how was COVID-19, what was the impact, of that on your business? Was it net positive? Was it flat? How was COVID-19?
Super good question, Atul. So I'd say probably three impacts, right? When COVID first happened, obviously our production services business, the stuff where we're on set, ground to almost an immediate halt. Ironically, our network business was mostly unaffected. Like we didn't get a lot of new business, no surprise, during the pandemic. During the pandemic, everyone needed connectivity. The biggest change in the networking profile was how the traffic moved. It used to move much more in sort of like a hub and spoke models between big facilities where you were trying to move data on behalf of our customer sets to these big post and VFX facilities where the work was then done. These days, what happens is there's a big push for data to a location, typically by metro, that might now be a data center instead of a machine room.
Okay.
But you have all the individuals are either at the office location reaching into that local data center, or the remote reaching back into that local data center. So the sort of topology of how data flows has changed somewhat. And then remote collaboration during the pandemic, of course, took off like crazy, right? So we went from having a business where we would spend lots of time with someone like a producer and trying to explain to them that, hey, 30% of your production cost is travel, and here's how we would save you money, or
Hmm.
here's how we're going to save the creative time and energy, and their sort of the work-life balance
Right.
equation. And the reality is this great forcing function forced people to do a lot of different things. People took home, content for the first time, pre-release content where editors could touch it, and before it was just a no. And we went through lots of appropriate security concerns.
Right.
I think what the net result is, remote collaboration is now a known skill, meaning everybody in our industry, it's a bit like breathing. They've all figured it out. It's very natural for them to know that they might prefer to do things in person as much as they can, but they know that if they have key talent in a different city, or who happens to be on a shoot or somewhere else where they can't be there for something, they can still participate at high quality. That it is much better than it was, say, in 2019 before the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, and what we've seen in the last probably 12 months is a migration of that energy around, hey, we're happy this just works, to how do we make this better? And that
Hmm.
better aspect for remote collaboration these days is partly bits and quality, and partly the collaboration features themselves. Like how do we continue to improve on that experience, um, to again reduce frustration and improve the quality of the actual collaboration.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Yep. I mean, there is a pre-COVID versus a post-COVID way of functioning within the industry, and I was curious about how that transpired for the company. One other aspect that would be great for some of our users to and members to understand is relating to the markets that Sohonet serves.
Right.
Which markets, and then which are the perfect conditions where your solutions are required. Is it when you have co-productions between different continents, different countries?
Good.
uh, Again, some of those perfect recipes would be great to understand.
Sure. Um, so I guess a couple of things. One, we operate primarily in North America and Western Europe, um, and a little bit Australia, New Zealand. We are primarily in what I would describe as Western English speaking countries. And
Mhm.
it's more of a consequence of how film production budgets and opportunity have grown, right? If you add up the production value of TV, film, and advertising around the world, something like 85% of it's contained in 6 countries, US, Canada, no surprise, UK, Ireland, and Australia, New Zealand.
Got
Um, there are definitely a lot of production spend in the rest of Western Europe, in China, in India, in the greater world. But if you pull off what we call prosumer, so pick a budget number, pull out the YouTube, um, not quite professionals, might make real money. Don't get me wrong,
right,
um, but don't have a lot of what we would describe as production value, meaning they don't spend a lot of money on the production.
right.
Um, Therefore, hard for us to make money, right? I would say the vast majority of our business probably ends up in what we would describe as sort of like medium, large, and extra large budgets.
Hmm.
Um, we have this t-shirt sizing thing that we kind of look at production budget values. That's probably a consequence of their ability to spend money, right? Like if you're an incredibly cash strapped production, the last thing you're trying to do is have people in different continents and different cities, right?
Yep.
Um, and your choices for post houses, if your budget's really small, or your opportunity for VFX is much different. Where our sweet spot tends to be is where the productions have enough money to go typically use a production studio, meaning they're going out to a purpose-built facility that is designed to make movies and TV and film and
Oh,
commercials.
right.
Um, and so we service those. We service the data egress back. That would imply that that data needs to go somewhere, that they have collaboration partners. And then they would need to want to work on that content with different actors or different, I should say, use case drivers, right? People who are personas in the workflow.
Right.
Most modern content, let's say professional content that's going to show up on a streaming platform in theaters or on your broadcast TV, um, are going to use our services or something similar to our services, right? So like
Right.
we did just publish in the both the Emmys and the Golden Globes that we touched every nominee, in fact, with at least one of our products and
Wow.
services.
Fascinating.
And I think it's you can imagine when they're if you're making say a $30 or $40 million movie,
Right.
which is definitely a medium production size, right?
Right.
You are probably at that level talking to 7 or 8 different vendors. You know, you have a different vendor for audio, you have a different vendor for color and VFX and post.
Right.
You may have the same vendor for dailies and color grading as an example. You may not. And then you're at that budget level, you have, no surprise, an entire gravity of people around the physical location of shooting. Typically, there's a gravity of data around where post, where the center of gravity for post is. So they may pick if most of the executives on the show are in New York or in LA or in London, they may pick one of those cities to do the post work after they're done shooting.
Hmm.
Their VFX partners could be anywhere. These days, VFX partners tend to be in countries that are driven by tax credits.
Hmm.
That may be places like Vancouver or New York. That may not be. It may be places
Right.
like Toronto or Montreal or
Hmm.
even Sydney, Australia, right? Um,
Right.
but as a consequence of all these different vendors, you have to push data around. And if people who have to push data around, we either get involved at the network layer where we're actually servicing the network operational requirements of a business or a production, or we're getting involved at the software layer, meaning they need file transfer capabilities and we have that. They need production asset management, or they need real time remote collaboration, and they
Hmm.
would engage us in those services along the way. And that's typically the kinds of like for your listeners where we would see ourselves adding value, right?
Right.
Again, the smaller the budgets, the less that they are pushing data to different locations, either because of vendors or because of actual creatives in the workflow.
Hmm.
The less likely they're to need our services.
Understood. So you mentioned something about the personas in the workflow. Um, who is most likely to take, get a Sohonet solution in within the scheme of things?
Good question. We typically think about 3 primary buyer personas.
Okay.
Probably 4 really, but of course there's the production decision process, right? And that's typically, it could be the production supervisor, it could be the producer. It's typically a UPM or line producer who is making the initial decisions of, hey, we've decided for tax credit reasons, talent reasons, et cetera, to shoot in Georgia or London or wherever they're going to shoot.
Hmm.
They are engaging in a local production studio relationship. As an example, in Georgia, there are something like 35 different production studio locations now.
Hmm.
Um, then they're making a decision on what their shoot schedules look like, and we are typically trying to engage with them. So that's the production element. In the post world, it tends to be a post supervisor.
Okay.
Um, Often, this is somebody who's attached um, right when principal production starts, principal photography, I should say, or shortly thereafter, depending on, is it the first season of something? Is it second season of something? Is it a huge episodic or a huge feature or not?
Hmm.
But the post supervisor tends to make a lot of decisions around tools that support the workflow and their comfort level. And then the VFX supervisor is the third person we spend a lot of time with. Same exact decision criteria of how they are working and how they want to engage in that workflow.
Got
That fourth persona really is the tech leader. Could be a CTO. It could be the head
it.
of engineering. There's typically somebody who is assigned with. It could be security, making sure that the security stuff is that it's a tool or a service that's locked down and meets the studio's requirements.
Hmm.
But usually, it's does it meet the workflow requirements? Usually, it's around, hey, is this particular piece of gear or service going to solve my needs at a price that matters because they obviously have the budget, but
Right.
that's going to meet their workflow requirements.
Understood. Fascinating. That is. Thanks for that clarification, because again, we have a host of personas who typically are part of our network, and this would be super useful for folks to understand really where the solution fits in. The other question I was having was relating to the 300 sound stages that you talked about.
Sure.
And do they need to be compliant with specific any spec
No,
to work with Sohonet? No, they don't.
no. In fact, we work everything from the biggest tempo features of the year. Our customers at places like Trilith, Pinewood, Shadowbox would take on those really big productions.
Hmm.
And we might have different gear on set for the kind of capacity that they need to, they have a lot
Oh,
more data. They shoot with bigger cameras, more cameras, et cetera. And they might have a much higher VFX production budget. So they might be buying a lot more bits to leave the network, so to speak.
hmm.
But we also do it, believe it or not, a pretty vibrant business with what we call offlot. And these are typically productions who either can't afford or don't want to pay for a purpose-built production facility. Could be because there's an empty warehouse down the street where the nexus of their talent is, and they want to stay in that city, and they just
Right.
want someone to come in and kit out that space so that they can shoot a movie, right? Those are, again, typically they could be old hangars, they could be warehouses, things like that. And we probably do typically about 100 productions like that a year where people come to
Hmm.
us and said, please help us kit this out. Um, Sometimes those are sizable productions, and sometimes they're low budget productions. It really depends on what they're trying to accomplish.
Understood. Understood. Fascinating. Awesome. So I think that's a great sort of intro to a broad intro and overview of the business. Would love to understand how the 2023 year passed by. I know it was a tough year for Hollywood given the strikes, but if you can share how 2023 was for you,
Sure.
that'd be good.
Um, Painful would be my headline. I think we got our data science game on in a big way probably in Q4 22. We started seeing a slowdown in the number of productions that were hitting our production studios.
Hmm.
We got religion on third-party data science real fast in terms of trying to figure out exactly what was happening in the marketplace, who was shooting what, when it was getting greenlit, et cetera.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I think that the reality is the bigger decline happened when the first strike happened, right in
Right.
May,
Right.
for SAG-AFTRA.
Hmm.
Um, the you know the I guess all the turmoil around labor unions, no surprise, not only reduced the volume of things being greenlit, but certainly um, put everyone on edge around committing to services. So typically if you loved our product and you're like, how do we make it cheaper? So there's two ways to make things cheaper: buy more of it, volume, right,
Yeah.
or buy it for
Right.
longer, in which case we can provide it for cheaper, right?
Hmm.
Um, in those weird dynamics, that goes away, and people start
Right.
going, "Hey, I need exactly 6 weeks of this, or I only need one of these. I
Hmm.
don't want to take a chance on two, etc."
Right.
So across the board, that hurt pretty much every part of our business, right?
Right.
Um, as that strike stretched into the future, from May all the way to say November, it got pretty ugly. Like um, there are a lot of customers of ours in the industry who are closing locations, who might have used to have, say, 7 or 8 VFX locations, are now going to move down to 4.
Hmm.
Who might have had 2 big post buildings in the same building or in the same metro, and they're like, we just can't afford this anymore. We're going to go down to 1 location. As people are reducing their operational footprint or their capacity, we're just dealing with, again, not having as much to work on. No surprise,
Hmm.
our revenue, took a real beating. And I think probably like the rest of the industry, we're waiting for things to come back. Right? It's great that the
Yeah.
strikes are over, and there's definitely lots of very positive leading indicators.
Hmm.
Um, but productions have not yet returned at scale. And so even though it's just past the end of 23, I think probably like the rest of the industry, we're all, fighting to hang on to what we have right now and trying
Right.
to manage cash, which I'd say is probably the answer for most of the VFX and post vendors and their suppliers in the supply chain.
That's right. That's right. No, I've been consistently like picking that theme up with a host of conversations I've had with folks across the supply chain that have associations with Hollywood. So that's pretty consistent. There were two fairly positive news for Sohonet last year. One is congratulations on all the Emmy winning nominations that actually came through. And then there was also the acquisition that was in the beginning of the year. Can you talk a little bit about both of those events, and what was your sort of net take on those two? Also, the acquisition. I mean, how's the acquisition fared? The thought process behind it.
Um, so winning the Emmy for Pivot was great. I think the award ceremony was this year. I think that was more of a recognition from the industry for all the hard work that we did in 21, 22 to make, Flex was our first Emmy, which was really about
That's right.
workflows on consumer devices, but Pivot's more about what we would call, theatrical or studio grade reviews, meaning
Hmm.
like not camera ready, theater ready.
Right.
And that technically it's harder,
Hmm.
but great to be recognized by the industry and our customers and colleagues in the industry. Um, I think the acquisition was probably maybe the most important thing that we've done this year. It's definitely a logical evolution of what we're trying to accomplish around collaboration. Production asset management is maybe the next really hard thing for us to solve as an industry, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
we love what Fifth Kind was doing for a long period of time. We think the intersection with our other products is important. Um, the way we'd like the industry to head is that a creative, a filmmaker, a storyteller. Um, Today they have this challenging approach that everyone has to take. Is they start off with, "Hey, I want to review a certain asset," and the
Hmm.
first question they have to ask themselves is how they want to review it, and based on how they want to review it, whether they want to look at something by themselves, make comments, and then share it, or whether they want to get a bunch of their colleagues on the
To
same
review.
call as if they're in the same room and have a discussion. That typically means 2 completely diametrically opposing tool sets,
Yep.
and
Yep. Right.
setting that workflow up isn't straightforward, right? Like
Hmm.
whether you're a director, a producer, et cetera, the people you're engaging to set that up are different, right?
Right. Right.
Um, we think of 7 primary workflows that we try to support, maybe
Hmm.
workflow groups, right? That starts as early as obviously previs, and then there's production in the post world. Editorial is a huge piece, but there's also audio, color grading, um, obviously visual effects, and then we have to finish things, meaning cut reviews and actual screening and finishing that has to happen at theatrical scale or theatrical quality.
Hmm.
Um, in each one of those steps, the assets and how the assets flow matter, right?
Right. Right.
Who they're coming from, how they're being touched, what the primary workflow is. And so it's real complicated for
Hmm.
everyone in the chain. Certainly the post supervisor probably has the biggest challenge of trying to wrangle all that together.
Right.
Um, but it can be daunting for sure. And
Hmm.
so we have spent a lot of time thinking about how that might change so that you start with the asset and you allow the creative to then describe how they want to engage with that asset. Do they want to engage in real time or not? And making sure that we can provide those tools. And that gives a simple crossover that in the hybrid workflow that most people need, which is like, hey, 6 of us were on a call today. We went through that cut, but Joey couldn't be here.
Right.
And Joey's
Right.
an important person and we need his feedback. You'd like to be able to record what you did and still have Joey review it and then annotate, make notes, and send them back to the group.
Hmm.
Um, and vice versa. You certainly want a world where people can go, hey, um, the boss gave us his feedback on this cut already. Now the 5 of us want to go through it together. So
Right.
it's somebody else gave you something offline and now you want to review it in real time with other people.
Hmm.
Again, it's not that those things aren't possible today. They're not straightforward to accomplish. And we think there's lots of things we can do in between on how those workflows integrate to
Hmm.
make it easier to get people out of the world of to get from this workflow to that workflow. I have to download what I was working on and upload it into this tool over here. Why can't
Right.
we have a backbone of services, as it were, where through open APIs, people can reach in and get the right asset to do the magic they do in their service and provide that back to the filmmaker.
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
So I think directionally, there's lots of things we can do to make things better for the industry in total. Um, and that's where we're headed with that asset.
Understood. Understood. And I'm guessing that what really is sort of happening on the solution side is that it is customizable to suit a particular workflow, even if it's slightly bespoke, even if it's unique to a particular company or a project.
Yeah, I would say we're certainly not a custom dev shop, right? Like, so
Right.
we are not in the mode of building things for people. At the same time, despite the fact that every let's say distribution studio makes movies or makes
Right.
episodics, etc., and every streamer has a streaming business model, they are all different. They all
Yeah.
have their own uniqueness. So it's
That's right.
about having common workflows that can be adapted to the specifics of that particular customer.
Adapted.
Yeah, and
Understood.
then making that easy,
Understood.
making a configuration instead of a code update is a big deal. And but by no means
Right.
is
Right.
everything perfect. Like we have a we have a long ways to go to make things better and better.
Of course.
But we have a good roadmap on how to get there for sure.
Got it. Got it. And so the integration is going well. I see that you are now sort of announcing a lot of new enhancements. And
We are. We spent a lot of time trying to stabilize the asset that we picked up. Right, so we acquired another company. Um, had existing customers, of course, important customers, and so we've spent a lot of time trying to make sure we can both
hmm,
stabilize the performance of it and really improve
right.
the scalability.
Nice.
Um, and we're now starting to put more attention on what comes next, those product integrations with other things that we do as well as third parties. So
Any aspects that you are working on right now that you are super excited about? Any enhancements that are coming out in this year?
there are a lot of good things this year.
Okay.
I The biggest thing we're going to do early in the year will be around our daily review tool Rush. So we showed a preview of that at IBC. We'll have more of that hopefully this quarter. The tech retreat would be a good place if we hit our deadlines. And certainly in NAB, we'll have more to show on that.
Right.
Um, we we just relaunched our file transfer product, File Runner, which has been super popular with small, medium, both post
Oh,
houses and productions for a long time. That's got a new UI, new UX, some new features that make it faster, better, cheaper. So we're excited about that.
nice.
And then there's continued improvement um, across our real time suite.
Hmm.
So improvement on our Pivot, which is our theatrical grade product for remote collaboration, that allows if they're on net or on campus, they can push SDI like quality, so a gig of service or better,
Hmm.
which is unheard of. It
Wow.
means they get a workflow like they're in the same building, even though they're not.
Wow.
At full, 80-foot screen size, if that's what they need in 4K, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we've done the reverse work of that to make it available off net. Until recently, that was always required our network because there's so many bits moving. Network latency is always a problem. It's really hard the more bits you push at once to try and have the latency be low 100 milliseconds gets harder and harder, harder, surprise, mathematically.
Right.
But we made some big changes there that we think will improve that experience for customers, and at the
Hmm.
same time, on its younger sibling, so to speak, for Clearview Flex, we're continuing to ratchet up where it works. So you'll see it coming out. We announced it on Azure at IBC. We should be in a position to announce it available on AWS very soon. It's
Wow.
already on VMware. So we're trying to meet our customers on the virtual environments that they need to be in.
Right.
Um, we believe cloud is going to happen. We believe there'll be probably more private cloud than public cloud in the long
Hmm.
run.
Right.
Um, but we're trying to make sure that we're where our customers need to be.
Got it. Got it. And I know one of the key aspects that some of your latest collateral, especially on Clearview, talks about is again savings on production costs and production time. I'm guessing that that continues to be one of the key sort of aspects that you're driving with your solutioning.
For sure. So there's probably two things that I think that most of our customers want to solve. One is in this current environment, it's about getting the cost of production down.
Right.
Um, and they've all just taken a pretty big labor hit. The cost of labor has gone up. There's inflation has been crazy for everyone's goods and services for the last few years.
Right.
So the only way they're going to manage that is to take shoot days and or post days out of the workflow, right?
Right. Right.
They don't have a lot of choices. Having better, effective remote collaboration is one of those ways to do that. I think you'll see them looking at trying to do fewer days on set. We'll see if that happens.
Hmm.
But they have some real challenges on how they're going to both reduce costs and maintain quality. The other way they can reduce costs is the kind of talent they attract, right? So um, can they get the post work or the VFX done work with vendors who are cheaper? How can they
Right.
provide quote unquote cheaper? That means they're probably using labor from other non expensive locations.
Right.
So we're definitely continuing to see a drive for both tax credit regions, but also for just labor costs for people to be able to support, work from India as an example,
Right. Right.
which has always been a thing in visual effects. But I think the more remote collaboration makes life easier for people to work apart, the
Right.
more we'll see that talent creative labor market democratize.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And in all of this, things like security, disaster recovery is all table stakes. It's all hygiene aspects.
Of
There's
course,
not too.
security for sure, right? Like Movie
Got
Labs
it.
is doing a great job of pushing this concept of zero trust security.
Right.
We've leaned in pretty hard on that with our customers, and you'll see some stuff this year
Okay.
around that.
Right.
But security is super, super important for everybody in the chain,
That's right.
um, and we continue to put that at the forefront of everything we do when we're building any product that we build.
Fascinating. So, last couple of questions, Chuck. One was obviously there's this big revolution that started, end of last quarter, relating to Gen AI,
Sure.
and generally about just artificial intelligence, machine learning. Is that already sort of part of your roadmap? Is that already integrated? How do you sort of take a look at that piece?
Um, it's a good question. We actually think generative AI is certainly, if not at the peak of its hype cycle, it's close.
Yep.
Um, you know, 2 years ago, it was virtual production was going to save the world, which it by the way may someday.
Yep.
But like every new technology, there's this Gartner hype cycle that everyone
Yes,
sees.
that's right.
Um, and virtual production, as an example, certainly in the trough of
Yes.
disillusionment, whatever that's called right now, right? Where everyone's upset. Some
Yeah.
businesses have gone out of business, et cetera, and they're reevaluating. Gen AI is probably in that. In fact, I'll throw up. a quick visual
Sure.
aid on that because it's visually compelling.
Hmm.
Let's see, hit share screen. Can you see that?
Aha. Yes.
So,
That's right.
obviously, I stole this article. The source is here,
Hmm.
but it's a graphic that somebody else had already put together about 3 months ago.
Right.
Um, that describes, the AI, specifically the Gen AI hype cycle. So,
Hmm.
again, I think generative AI is going to be incredibly important for our industry. Industry members to think about it isn't whether a computer's coming to take over their job. It really is there another human using these tools that's coming to take their job? And that's probably a more realistic way to think about it.
Hmm.
But I do think, we have to go through this classic journey of, um, hey,
Massive
this is an
hype.
amazing idea, right? It's going to save all
That's
this
right.
money. And in the beginning, there's lots of like, oh my God, you could do this. At the end of the day, we're a professional industry.
That's right.
Um, we've all seen the images with like six fingers on them and stuff. That's the
Yeah.
easy stuff to fix, right? But the reality is will generative AI get incorporated into workflows for sure, right? Will it reduce costs in a chain? Probably, right? It probably is going to create a world where there's a bunch of visual effects that can get cheaper.
Hmm.
Um, and that may be great for episodic, right? Because there's a lot of
Right.
episodic where they do very light visual effects that could get better, and if it's cheaper, then that's good for lots of people. But there'll be
Hmm.
lots of disruption as a consequence in the meantime, and I'm sure there'll be lots of promises of things that don't happen, right?
That's right.
I, but I do think fast forward 5 years from now, it'll just be one more tool that we all leverage. All right, it'll appear like
That's
it
right.
has already. It's
Yeah.
already in the Adobe Firefly sort of workflow.
Yeah.
You'll see
Yeah.
that in many of the tools in the next 18 months, and then it'll just be, how can you and your tool go faster?
That's right. That's right. No, I can totally see that. In the moment you said virtual production, that kind of there's a light bulb that went up right there. But thanks for that clarification. Chuck, we didn't talk about your background. You wear multiple hats within the industry, super well connected, right in the heart of Hollywood, very involved with HPA besides your day job at Sohonet. Would love to get your background for our listeners, and also a little bit about how you started your journey with Sohonet.
Sure, happy to do so. So for me personally, really joined the industry in 2001 when I came out to be the CIO at Technicolor many, many,
Hmm.
many months ago. My journey was started in IT at Technicolor. Ended up running my first P&L in 2003 in London. Went and ran what was then called Package Media, but became Home Entertainment. In the beginning was a lot of VHS tapes, and then became DVD, etc.
Right.
Uh, changed businesses to run what was the broadcast division back in 2008, I think. And then I left. My journey with Technicolor ended in 2012. But I
Hmm.
was there a good in the Uber company probably 15 years, but in the Technicolor field for first 11 or 12 years of my journey.
Right.
Um, I left. I did a startup that got acquired pretty early.
Hmm.
Um, Ended up as a board member at Sohonet, and then stepped in as full time chairman and CEO in mid 2014,
Got it.
um, and have been effectively the leader of the company since then. Um, we've gone on a journey from when I joined at Sohonet. I joined the board in 2013. I want to say 30-ish people, 35 people, something like that. I think we had 3 or 4 people in the U.S., and the vast
Hmm.
majority of our team was in London. And now we're 170 people, split
Wow.
pretty evenly between the U.S. and the U.K. But we do have people in Vancouver and Sydney and places like that, kind of all over.
Right.
Um, and the makeup of the company has changed over time, where we've really focused on this concept of remote collaboration and that capability for for storytellers.
Right.
And so as you see us build out those services over the last few years, we launched our first software product back in 2015. Clearview Flex, believe it or not, even though it was really important during the pandemic in 2020, we actually launched it in 2017.
Got it.
So it's been an interesting journey, but I think the one thing you would find about my colleagues and myself at Sohonet is pretty much everybody has worked in the industry somewhere else.
Right.
A lot of us came from the post world,
Hmm.
and we have this passion for what our customers do with content, right? Like,
Right.
what gets us out of bed in the morning is solving those challenging problems when someone's trying to create, the next amazing feature or the next amazing episodic, and the
Right.
talent that revolves around that, we find obviously incredibly engaging, which is why we work the crazy hours we work, to deliver service for our customers. It's not an easy industry, as you know.
Yes. That's
it
right.
is certainly not a 9 to 5 industry. It
Yep.
is a lot of stress and a lot of elation too, but a lot of hard work to get to that elation.
That's right.
But we do love it, and that's why we wake up every day passionately trying to help solve those problems.
Fascinating, fascinating, and Chuck, it is your 10th year at Sohonet. So, from all of us at Vitrina, I do want to wish you and Sohonet a great and successful 2024.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you
speaking
very
with us
much.
today.
Thanks, Atul. Pleasure to speak with you. Take care.